You're listening to Bonditunes International, broadcasting from Sydney. I have a glass of red wine on my table, which means it's highly likely that I've got our entertainment reporter. You see, I've had a glass of wine. Our political correspondent and music guru, Adam Devlin, on the line from Melbourne. Good evening, Adam.
Hello, Henry. How are you?
I'm alive and kicking. It's hot and it's raining. It's all those things that we don't like about summer, you and I.
Yeah. And I'm not joining you with the red wine today.
Oh, what's going on?
I'm having a scotch instead.
Good stuff. Now we're doing Music Guru. We're doing your top 10 best. I can't talk. It's too hot. Top 10 best albums of the year in 2015. So let's get into that.
Yeah.
Was it very hard to pick, by the way?
Look, yes, it was. This year's been a strange year for music for me. The first half of the year, I had probably 3 or 4 albums come out that really grabbed me and held my attention, and I'm still listening to them at the end of the year. Midway through the year, I was thinking, this is actually a pretty bad year for music. There's not a lot here to choose from. Then the second half of the year rolled around, and when I sat down on the weekend to come up with my list of top 10 albums of the year, I had like 35 albums in the short list.
Oh dear.
So it took me quite a bit to go through and cull them down and cull. And I kept culling until I got down to my top 10.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really quite exciting, Henry. I do this every year.
Yes.
And for the first time ever, half of my 10 albums, 5 of my albums in the top 10 are all Australian artists.
Gee, and that's nothing biased by any means.
No, it's just it's certainly the highest amount of Australian artists I've ever had in my annual top 10 albums list, which I think is fantastic. It's a great sign that Australian music is,
doing
surging forth globally at the moment.
I was just about to say doing very well globally. Let's get into that. What's number 10?
Well, these aren't in any particular order, so we're just going to go in reverse alphabetical order. How's that?
That's fair. That's fair to all the artists.
Okay, so the first album that's in my top 10 is a new release that's only just been out a couple of weeks, and it's Blue Neighborhood by Troye Sivan.
Oh, yes.
Now, Troy, I've picked Troy as pick of the week earlier in the year with a song called Fools. He then he released a couple of EPs. He did 3 video clips to songs on the album that go together to form a short movie. And it's essentially the story of a young boy coming out as gay. And that's essentially what this album is. It's Troye Sivan's coming out album. It's his debut album. For those of you who don't know who Troye Sivan is, he, if you are a 16-year-old schoolgirl, you know who Troye Sivan is, because he...
Or a 16-year-old gay boy.
Or a 16-year-old gay boy, yes. He is one of the most successful YouTubers on the planet. He has millions of people watching him every week on YouTube. To the degree where it's estimated he's earning about $500,000 a year just from YouTube.
Good Lord. That's fantastic, isn't it?
He's 20 years old.
And he seems to be a pretty centered kind of dude.
He is. And what amazed me about this album, Henry, was the quality of the songwriting. He wrote all the stuff himself. And it's some of the best songwriting I've heard in a long time. And his voice doesn't sound like a camp 20-year-old boy.
Right.
It sounds like a mature, sensible, articulate, middle-aged man.
Yes, I was going to say a very developed voice for his age. Okay, let's not spend too much time on each of these because we got 10 of them. Is that right?
Next, yes, and of course he is Australian.
Yes, good point.
Australian act. The next one was also an Australian, Sui Zen, who I also played her as pick of the week a month or so ago with Take It All Back. An amazing album, just heavily influenced by Japanese pop music. Right. And has only just been released, the album in full, and it's garnering major positive reviews around the world. So Sui Zhen, it's her second album, but I think it's the one that's going to break her internationally.
Did she tap into the Japanese market? Because, as you say, she was heavily influenced by Japanese music and the visuals of Japanese singers as well.
She certainly has. And she has a loyal following in Japan. She also now has a loyal following in America as well. So Sui Zhen is somebody to watch next year, I think.
Okay.
Next is somebody you may or may not have heard of. It's also a third Australian act on my top 10 for the year. She's been around a little while, Olivia Newton-John.
Ah, she's been around for a little while, hasn't she?
Yeah. She released this EP actually early in the new year. It's called Hotel Sessions. It's a collection of songs that she wrote with her nephew / producer, Brett Goldsmith, who I actually interviewed for our show.
That's right, yes.
And it's an amazing collection of songs. She does 2 cover versions on there. One is Mr. Mister's Broken Wings from 1981 or 2, I'm not sure now. And the other is a cover of Cold Chisel's Bow River.
Oh.
And I never thought I would live to see the day that Olivia Newton-John would be covering Cold Chisel.
But yes.
There you go. She did.
Wonderful stuff.
2 other little points about Olivia that I want to mention for this year. It's been an amazing year for her. Well, three points very briefly. One is she's doing a residency in Vegas. This is her second year of doing that residency in Vegas, and she's in the top 20 for money-making concerts in the US this year. So she's been incredibly successful out of her stint in Vegas.
Can I just ask, because I'm ignorant?
Yep.
What is a residency?
That's where that's where an artist basically books into one of the casinos and stays there for an extended period of time. So it's like going on a concert tour around the world, but you sit in the one spot and the world comes to you.
Right. Gotta love that.
The other 2 things that I wanted to mention very briefly, one was just amazing to think that she earlier this year had a #1 dance song in America with her daughter. She's 67 years of age. She's had a #1 dance hit in America with her daughter. First mother-daughter combo to ever have a #1 dance hit in America.
It's lovely stuff, isn't it? And her daughter's name again is?
Chloe Latanzi.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Now, the next one is a guy by the name of Mika. I played Mika as well as Pick of the Week.
Yes, you have. Yes.
An amazing album called No Place in Heaven, and it is sensational. He is, I think, in my limited knowledge, one of the most influential and impressive male singer-songwriters out of England at the moment. And this album it didn't chart very well, which surprised me because it's the best album he's done. It's a really good album.
Yeah.
After that, we moved to somebody else I've also used as Pick of the Week this week, and I'm not surprised that most of my top 10 have been used as Pick of the Week. But this is a Canadian jazz singer, Melody Gardot.
Yes.
With Currency of Man. Amazing album for her. It's for the first time, really, she's moved out of jazz and into pop / jazz / blues. Her voice is maturing brilliantly, and it's just it's one of those albums that every time I listen to it, I hear something new in it. And that's a rare thing. So,
and she's pretty young, isn't she?
She is, yeah, early 30s. You may remember she had a car accident and was almost
That's
blind.
right, yes.
And part of her therapy was music therapy, and she discovered she could sing and now has a global audience.
That's a great story at Christmas.
It's a wonderful story, yeah. Next is another Australian artist who I've also played this year, as in my Pick of the Week segment, and that is Lenka with her album The Bright Side.
Oh, yes.
Young Aussie artist, sells out stadiums in America, sells out stadiums in Asia, and can't get 30 people to go to a concert here in Australia.
Bizarre, isn't that bizarre?
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
In fact, she's generally overseas regarded as Australia's unknown superhero.
Right.
Next is an album that I haven't actually played as Pick of the Week this year, but it's young lass by the name of Jess Glynn with the album "I Cry When I Laugh."
Mm-hmm.
Now, what amazed me about this album was it's a straight pop album, so very commercial, very mainstream. She had several massive hits from it. The main one, or the biggest one, is probably "Don't Be So Hard on Yourself," and she sounds a lot like Adele, in my opinion. And so this album came out at the beginning of the year, and whilst I was waiting for Adele to release her album 25, I was using Jess as a bit of an Adele filler. So,
Someone sounds like Adele, eh?
but she's amazing. She's much more commercial, much more up-tempo and dance than Adele ever will be or could be. But yeah, and a great pop album.
That's fantastic.
Next, we come to another Australian artist, Courtney Barnett.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also played Courtney Barnett as Pick of the Week. This is the breakthrough album of the year internationally. She's been nominated for Grammys. She won an armful of ARIAs here in Australia. It's her debut album. It's called Sometimes I Sit and Think, Sometimes I Just Sit.
Mm-hmm.
Very folky, sort of country blues feel to it. Very stripped back. There's not much production here. It's just, a very simple little album, if that makes sense. There's no big buzz about it. It just is something she recorded and put out. It hit a chord with the public, and it has broken her internationally. So she got a lot of press in America. I was in America for all of May this year.
Yes.
And every bar you went into, every shop you walked into, every radio station you tuned into, they were talking about and playing Courtney Barnett. So big things coming for her next year as well.
Right.
Second last album in my top 10 was one of the first albums I got this year, actually, at the very beginning of the year, also used in my Pick of the Week segment, and it is Asif Avadan with his album called Shadow. It is just such a good album. I thought his previous album, and I can't think of the name of his previous album now, Different Pulses, there you go, from 2 years ago, was an exceptional album. One of the best albums I've ever heard from anyone. This is a better album. His songwriting is incredible. His vocals, many people think he's a female singer. Female black singer, because that's how he sounds. He sounds very...
Yes, I remember,
Yeah, so, an amazing artist who... massive in Europe and massive in the Middle East, massive in parts of Africa, but really hasn't broken America, Australia, or the UK yet. And I say yet because that will happen.
Right.
So Asif Avadan, keep an eye out for him. And that brings us to our last album, or the 10th album in my top 10 favourite albums of the year. And it is the aforementioned Adele.
Okay.
Now, Adele, of course, her last album was 21, and that was 4 years ago, or 5 years ago now. Her current album, released just recently, is called 25.
It's very interesting the way she's naming these albums.
She's basically naming them of the age that when she recorded them.
Is that right? Is that a conscious, obviously it's a conscious thing, but do people know this?
Well, she's made no secret of it. She's had 3 albums. She's had 19, 21, and 25.
Right. Okay. That's a very interesting way of doing things.
Yeah. Now, she has said that the next one won't be her age. So the next album may have a different title.
Right.
But yeah, so far, each of her albums have been named after the age that she was when she recorded them. And I guess if you do it that way, when you look back in, 70 years' time when you've got Alzheimer's, you don't need to try and remember how old you were when you recorded it.
Sorry. Okay.
But this album is going to end up being... Now, it only came out in December. There isn't a record that this album hasn't broken already, as far as sales go. It went to number 1 in pretty much every country on the planet.
Yes, I saw that on social media where I've been heavily criticized for not knowing who Adele is, and I've got a legal disclaimer to tell our listeners. I was not criticizing Adele, I just didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
So anyway, she's done pretty well for herself, hasn't she?
She has done pretty well for herself. This album, 25, will be the biggest selling album globally of this year.
Hmm.
It will also be the biggest selling album globally next year.
Can I ask you, Adam, what is it about Adele that touched the nerve of people around the world?
It's as simple as this, Henry. There's a couple of points. One is she's probably the best vocalist working today. The
Okay.
control she has of her voice, the timbre of her voice, and what she can do with it, it's just phenomenal. Secondly, she's, how can I put this politely? She's no sex symbol.
Yes. I
No.
was going to ask you about that because let's look at this practically. I think a lot of women who are, let's say, plus sizes
Yes.
or not absolutely beautiful like other singers like Rihanna, be saying, I can identify with this woman.
Exactly. So she hasn't alienated any audience segment.
Yeah.
So if you look at somebody like Selena Gomez or Kylie Minogue or Britney Spears or Miley Cyrus, these sort of people, they're very successful with a certain demographic.
Yes.
But then everyone else hates them.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Adele, somehow, I mean, I understand how she appeals to the over 35s.
Mm-hmm.
I understand how she appeals to like people who appreciate jazz and the blues and like serious music listeners. I understand how she appeals to all of them. I don't quite understand how she appeals to the same people that are buying Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, well, this is a fascinating overlap, isn't it?
Yeah, because her songs are not dancey in any way. They're all ballads. But I just think she's an amazing songwriter. She writes the stuff herself. And
what age is she?
25.
Of course, that's the name of her latest album. Silly.
Well, she's 26 now. She recorded it when she was 25. But she's now 26.
Right. So she's 25. How can a woman be so wise?
I have no idea. It's, I'm actually going to play a song off this in a moment for our listeners.
Yes.
And it is the thing that amazes me about Adele, and here it is. I don't understand how a Cockney lass of 24, which she would have been when she wrote this album, can write songs like this. Like, I just don't get it.
You almost have to believe in reincarnation because you think, if you believe in reincarnation, she could have been a really wise woman in another life,
Yeah. There's this one song on the album called "When We Were Young." She's 20. She was 24 when she wrote it.
When we were young. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's this searing ballad. In fact, it's her next single from the album. It's this searing ballad about two people's lives who they've gone apart, and she's looking back and she's sort of reminiscing about when they were young and in love and had their whole lives ahead of them. There's another song called "Water Under the Bridge," which similarly is all about love has gone, it's left me, it's all water under the bridge. But the song I'm going to play off it, Henry.
Oh, yes. And I just want to say to our listeners, I have listened to Adele for the first time ever. Adam sent me this song and I listened to it, and I have to say it is full on. It's pretty damn good.
It's otherworldly, in my opinion. When I heard the song for the first time, when I got the album, I thought, oh, Adele's done a cover.
Is that right? Yeah.
She's got it like this. There's no way that Adele wrote this. It sounded instantly familiar to me, and I knew it. In my mind, I knew this song, and so I thought, okay, she's done a cover. I just don't know who it is she's covering. So I jumped online, did a bit of a Google. She wrote it.
She wrote it. Does she get any help when she's writing these songs?
She gets some help with the music.
Yeah.
But basically, she writes the lyrics herself.
Yeah, and the lyrics are amazing in this, aren't they?
I just want to read a couple of lyrics to this
Sure.
because I just think it's pure poetry.
Hmm.
Um, I know I'm not the only one who regrets the things they've done. Sometimes I just feel it's only me who can't stand the reflection that they see. I wish I could live a little more. Look up to the sky, not just the floor. I feel like my life is flashing by, and all I can do is watch and cry. I miss the air, I miss my friends, I miss my mother, I miss it when life was a party to be thrown. But that was a million years ago.
Mm. How deep.
um,
So when you first heard this, Adam Devlin, you said that you couldn't believe that she wrote it. What were your first thoughts when you heard it? I mean, what did you? Because you did say to me off air that you have a. Well, tell our listeners what you told me off air about this song.
I think it's the best song I've heard in this decade.
Hmm.
Um, Without a head and shoulders above anything else I've heard.
Mm.
It is, and I don't use this word often, Henry, but this is perfect.
Yeah, I've
It
never
is
heard you
flawless.
using that word before.
Yeah. Her vocal delivery of it is spine tingling.
Mm.
The production is laid back. There's not a great big wall of sound behind her. It's just very simple music with an amazing lyric delivered perfectly.
Okay,
What's not to like?
what's not to like, indeed.
And
Yes.
the album 25
Hmm.
is also, in my opinion, the best album I've heard in this century, from the year 2000 till now. In the last 50, it's the best album I've heard in the last 15 years.
And that's a huge thing to say, Adam.
It is, and I've spent a lot of time listening to this album. I spent a lot of time listening to a lot of albums,
Mm.
and I just find this album is absolutely captivating.
And let's talk about this song before you present it, because it's called A Million Years Ago. Just explain what that is, what the song is actually about. You've read some lines from it, which are, basically saying what it's about. But give us a bit of detail and then present the song for us, Adam.
Sure. This song essentially is from the viewpoint of a lover, an ex-lover, reflecting on the relationship from a long time ago and how they regret the fact that they're not still in that relationship. She regrets the fact that her life has gone down the path it's gone down, and she reminisces about what it might have been if this relationship had have worked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, There's nothing else like this song. I've not heard another song like this. Well, sorry, that's not true. I have heard songs with a similar theme to this, but I've not heard one do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I've not heard one done as well as this. And what I love about it, Henry, is it's understated.
Yes.
And
As you said, the actual production of it is quite understated too.
yeah,
There's no big wall of music in the background on this.
no, and there's no big catchy chorus.
Mm.
It's just very matter
Yeah,
of fact.
very, very real.
It is. It's honest. Which is an odd choice of word to use because she was a 24-year-old Cockney lass when she wrote it.
Yes.
And it's called A Million Years Ago. Like,
I know.
I just don't get how somebody of 24 can sit down and write this song. Like, that to me blows my mind. Now, of course, she's a trained songwriter. She's studied this stuff at school, and post school, she actually went to school with Amy Winehouse.
Oh, well, let's hope she doesn't go down the same path.
I think it's fairly safe to assume she's not.
A very different person. Okay, Adam, present
Now,
this for us.
one thing I wanted to say: this album, as I said a minute ago, is going to be the biggest selling album of this year and next year.
Mm-hmm.
And she is on track after 3 albums to become pop music's first billionaire.
Right, very interesting.
And the other interesting thing, Henry, about Adele.
Oh God, can't get Adam off the wireless.
No one knows anything about her. She has no. The paparazzi don't follow her.
Why is that?
Because she doesn't buy into it.
Okay, fair enough.
She doesn't go to openings. She doesn't go to media events. She lives at home with her partner and her child. She goes and does the occasional promotional talk show when she's got something to promote.
Yeah.
And that's it. And when she's not promoting an album, we never see her.
Very interesting, and what a wise way to live. Adam,
Absolutely.
present this song for us.
Okay, look, it is an absolute honour. This is, I think, the best pick of the week I've ever done on Bonditunes. It is, for me, the song of the year, the song of the decade, the song of the century, this century so far. I know I'm being a bit superlative there, but I stand by those comments. Here is Adele with The Flawless, A Million Years Ago.
I only wanted to have fun, learning to fly, learning to run. I let my heart decide the way when I was young. Deep down, I must have always known that this would be inevitable. To earn my stripes, I'd have to pay and bare my soul. Life was a party to be thrown, but that was a million years ago. When I walk around all of the streets where I grew up and found my feet, they can't look me in the eye. It's like they're scared of me. I try to think of things to say, like a joke or a memory, but they don't recognize me now in the light of day.